Hi there, my name's Olivia and I'm going to be making a series of videos all about sort of British day-to-day culture and life, sometimes traditions, sometimes just things I take for granted, things that we like to eat, and all kinds of other aspects of British culture that's very easy for us. I don't even think about it, but if you're from another background or another country, then it might be new to you, it might be a little bit different. So of course I'm sitting here with my cup of tea. Can't really do anything without a cup of tea, so let's start with that. This isn't really a video about tea. I'm definitely going to do a video about tea and biscuits and the difference between biscuits and cookies. Stay tuned for that one, but I'm going to have to go and buy a big box of biscuits for that video, so I'm going to look forward to that. Before I start, I'm actually going to show you what I'm wearing because it's so distracting. If you can just see the top, it's like a little face. So rah. It's like a big monster. I really love this top. But it is super distracting if you're not sure what it is and you keep just catching a little glance of it, a little glimpse of it. Sorry about that. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? What would you like to talk about? What kind of aspects of British culture would you like to investigate a little bit further? There are loads of topics, so I actually do genuinely want your input and your suggestions on this. I can think of several things to start with, but I think I'm just going to start talking about school life just briefly. So this video is going to be mostly about school uniform, but I'm actually definitely going to do another video about the whole difference, well, the whole system, the whole school system, basically from when you're very little up to when you leave school and go on to university. So that's another video because that's very long-winded. Okay, so school uniform. Most British children wear a school uniform up until the age of about 16 normally, so we'll just investigate those little things. So most kids go to a primary school and then they go to a secondary school, and they might even go to a school-based nursery before they really start school, so I guess it's like a preschool kind of thing as well. And sometimes they're required to wear a certain uniform for that, but it's usually very basic, so something like a tracksuit with a logo on it. It's just something very, very comfortable for them to wear and move around in and play in and things. But mostly your school uniform starts being worn from the age of about 4.5 or 5. That might surprise some people. School uniforms can vary, and they really vary between primary schools and secondary schools. So primary school uniform can be many things. My first school that I went to had a very loose uniform policy because they knew that at the time there were some families who just weren't very well off, and we also had some refugee families as well. So the ethos there was you could have like a hand-me-down bit of uniform from a different school. So if your big brother or sister went somewhere else and all you had was their second-hand stuff, they didn't really mind. But obviously not all schools are like that. Okay. So mostly the main colours of school uniform would be either navy blue or black or grey. And then some schools have their another particular colour, like red is very popular as well. Some schools even have purple or yellow, for example. Most school uniform items are easily available to buy in supermarkets, for example. Most supermarkets have a clothing range, and most will do basic school uniform items. So black trousers or grey trousers, mostly for boys. Girls, it's usually fine for girls to wear trousers as well, but just for the purposes of explaining the difference. So we've got grey or black trousers for boys normally, and then a white shirt or maybe a pale blue shirt, and then some kind of sweater. So it might be a cardigan or just a pullover or a sweatshirt, depends on the school. Some schools, a lot of schools, will have their own kind of jumper or sweater or whatnot with a logo on it, and you can buy that directly from the school if it's a special item. But if it's unbranded and just plain, you can get it pretty much anywhere. And then for girls, there's usually the option of skirts. So again, plain black, plain blue, navy blue, sometimes with the same top. So white shirt, blue shirt, cardigan to match. So usually everything matches. So you're either going to have all grey, like a white shirt with a grey cardigan and grey trousers, or skirt, or all navy blue or all black. And then if they have a kind of, say, an accent colour like red, it would be usually black trousers or black skirt with a red top or a red cardigan over your shirt. So it's usually pretty plain in primary school, unless it's a very posh school. There are some like prep schools and private schools that take very young children, and some of their uniforms are beautiful, very professional looking, but you can tell they're expensive, and you can tell that every child like matches perfectly. So they haven't got the generic uniform from the supermarket, they've got the uniform from the school shop, and even their coats match, their bags match. Sometimes they even have to wear like little hats. It's very old fashioned in a few cases, but they are quite rare, those very posh schools. So when you get to secondary school, oh, actually, I'm gonna just add the summer uniform, of course, in primary schools. So in summer, girls can usually wear gingham dresses as well. So the gingham colour would match whatever their school uniform colour would be. So you can have a blue gingham or a red gingham, which are the most common, but sometimes you might get a yellow gingham or a purple one, or even a brown one I've seen every now and then as well. So that's really nice. And again, you can get them from supermarkets, and they sometimes even come with matching hair scrunchies or matching white socks with like a little tiny gingham frill around the edge. It's quite sweet. So summer school uniform is actually quite nice, and I really enjoyed wearing my summer school uniform, I think, a bit more so than the plain old wintry ones, and obviously the obligatory kind of woolen tights as well. So yeah, secondary school uniform is a little bit different. Obviously it's just a little bit more grown up, so you're going to wear that primary school uniform up until the age of 11, and then when you're 12 you change schools, and then you'll have a whole new set of school uniform to go and buy. So your new school might require a complete change, but the idea is kind of the same. Okay, so again, you're going to have some plain black or navy or grey, probably, trousers or skirt, and then a shirt. Again, it's usually white or pale blue, but again, some schools have their own coloured shirts, so it might be very pale yellow, or it might have a stripe on it, whatever the school decides. If it's an unusual item, it's harder to get hold of, so you often have to buy them directly from the school uniform shop, which is in the school itself, so they will sell you items of clothing. Obviously it's sort of easier to get generic items because you can just get them anywhere. So if the school is conscious of families who, again, don't maybe have the income to buy new items every year, or items that come directly from the school which might come with a bit of a higher price tag, then hopefully that school has realised that any generic items are just going to be a bit easier for families to go and get, especially if they have multiple children, I think, as well. Okay, and then in secondary school you'll often wear a tie, so both girls and boys are often required to wear a tie, and I was required to wear a tie when I started my upper school. I had a very different school experience from a lot of people, but I had to wear a tie from the age of about 13 for me, but for some people it's the age of 11. Not all schools will have a tie for girls, but we had to, so I got used to that, and I learned how to tie a tie, which I thought was quite a life skill. I would never have had that otherwise. And then sometimes you'll still get a kind of sweater or cardigan, but most secondary schools will have a blazer, so it would be a jacket in the school colour. So for some that's very plain, kind of, again, black, navy blue, something like that. Sometimes it's burgundy or bottle green, or a particular colour that the school has chosen, and that will have like an emblem of the school on it. And usually you can buy a plain blazer and then buy a little patch, like a little embroidered patch, which is the school logo or emblem, and you'll just sew that on and you pop it on your own blazer, and then that's it, isn't it? Okay, so it's usually a blazer and a tie, as well as skirt and trousers. That nice gingham dress, you don't get to wear that anymore. That was for the little kids. So it's usually a little bit more grown up, a little bit stricter perhaps as well. Obligatory with all of this is black shoes, plain black shoes. So what do you think about school uniform? What did I think of mine? Most of mine were pretty plain, and I think most of my school uniforms over the years were navy blue, which kind of put me off navy blue for quite a long time. I never really wanted to wear it outside of school because it was just what I had to wear. It's not what I chose. That association has kind of gone over the years, but still it's not my favourite colour. So I think whatever you're forced to wear at school, you don't really want to have to wear it again for a long time. It does a few things, the school uniform. I think it is meant to be egalitarian, so kids who come into school in their own clothes might show off a bit, okay, so they might have nicer clothes, or they might show off a brand name, or their branded shoes or trainers or whatnot, and they might come in looking a little bit flashy, and then there might be some kids who are not able to have those nice things. So part of the idea of it is to make everybody equal and to stop bullying. Doesn't always work, but that's part of the idea. The interesting thing is that any part of a uniform that can be personalised, by the time you get to secondary school, you're trying to show your personality in whatever way you can. So whatever way you can personalise your uniform, people will try it on. So for example, wearing a tie in a certain way is usually considered either cool or just terrible. So when I was at school, people would wear their ties the wrong way around, so like the skinny bit stuck out, and then they'd tuck the fat bit of the tie inside their shirt, so you just had this like little skinny tie. And sometimes it was the other way around, so like the fat end of the tie would be made really short, so like the end of the tie would be here, and you just get like this little stubby tie, and that was the way to wear your tie for a while, and that comes and goes. And then again, shoes are really the only personalising factor you can have as well. So depending on where you get your shoes from or what brand they are, that's going to show your little status symbol as well. And depending on what's in fashion, so for a few years like ballet flats were what everybody wore, and everyone had really bad feet, I think. When I was at school it was platforms, they're really coming back. So there was a brand called Kickers when I was at school. Kickers shoes were like the in thing, and they've come back the last year or two, so it's very familiar. But seeing kids going to school and like looking at their shoes, you can really tell what's in fashion, because that's the only bit of themselves that they get to show off. Even though they have to be black, there's still a way of showing you're fashionable or whatnot through your shoes. And then your backpack or your bag and your coat, I suppose, your outside wear that you can wear over the top. So there are ways of showing your own personality and being individual with your school uniform. Some schools will allow that more than others. So the other thing that school uniform does is kind of reflects on the school and the school ethos and the school attitude. So those kids that are really looking very well turned out, and they have pride in their appearance, really reflect well on the school. And you'll see, if you see a group of children walking outside, you know, catching the bus or walking home from school, and they're really immaculately dressed in their uniform and their tie is the correct way and their skirt is knee length and their socks are pulled up or whatnot, you can say that that school is a better school because they're actually taking pride in their appearance. There's obviously some discipline going on there. The teachers are obviously implementing a uniform policy which is quite strict. And I'm not sure what I think about discipline in that way in general, but I do think it reflects, as I say, reflects on the type of school it is. So if the teachers can be bothered to make an effort to inspect the uniform, which they do sometimes, okay, they literally will inspect people's uniforms, or they'll tell people off for having the wrong uniforms or send them home for having the wrong items or not wearing it properly, or give them some kind of consequences, then the children and the students as they grow up will kind of have this sense of pride in their appearance, and they know that they have to look their best. That sometimes means that that attitude reflects in different parts of their life, you know, that they're going to look their best, therefore they're going to do their best, and they're going to behave better because the school standards are higher, you know. And then again, if I see kids from my local comprehensive school walking around on their way to or from school, some of them are wearing like skinny jeans instead of trousers, so they're black but they're skinny jeans. They're not even wearing trousers to school, which wouldn't have been allowed in my school, definitely not. That was a huge no-no. And then they might have like all their shirt untucked and their tie kind of halfway undone and all that. And that, again, it shows that the school is not taking care of them or is not asking them to take care of themselves. They're not learning that lesson, which is present yourself in the way that you want to be seen and take pride in your appearance. So Some of that I'm playing devil's advocate for, but I think that's the idea behind it. The other thing that we used to get told all the time is you're an ambassador for your school. So if you're around the town centre or whatever, or if you're on the bus, or if you're on the way home from school, or you've stopped in the shops and you're wearing your school uniform, you are an ambassador for the school because everyone knows that you're from this school, you're wearing our uniform, and your behaviour reflects on the school reputation. And if, you know, little old lady down the road wants to make a complaint because the kids are littering or they're smoking or they're shoplifting or some antisocial thing, all she needs to do is see what school uniform it is and call up the school or email them or write to them, and then they'll get in trouble, you know, and inevitably there will be consequences. So a school uniform kind of shows everyone where you're from, and it's a real how can I put it? You know, everybody knows that this is the school that you're representing, so it kind of does make you hopefully behave in a way that reflects what you think of the school, and again, it's a reputation sort of thing. Excuse me. Especially in public places, and if you're on a school trip, so if you've been taken out for the day to a museum and you're wearing a uniform, you're expected to behave in a certain way, you know, because again, if you're rowdy or loud or antisocial or misbehaving, everybody in that museum is going to know what school you're from, and that reflects badly on the school. So you get it. I think I don't need to ram home that point anymore. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, you tend to wear school uniform up to the age of 16, but you can choose to stay on in school until you are 18. Now, it is now the law in Britain that you have to stay in some kind of education until the age of 18, but that may be at a college, which is not a university. It's another kind of institution, and I'll talk about that in another video. So you could go to a college, or you could do an apprenticeship, or you could stay on at school. If you stay on at school for the 2 years between when you're 16 and 18, you go into a part of school, into a year that we either call sixth form, but more accurately we call it year 12 and year 13, because you've done years 1 to 11 already. So now you're in year 12, you're in year 13, and you're studying for your A-level exams. You are now the oldest people in the school, and again, you are required or expected to present yourselves in a professional manner or in a more adult manner, and you are generally allowed to wear your own clothes at this point in time. Now, some schools still have a dress code, okay? So sometimes the school will say, yeah, you don't have to wear our school uniform, but you are limited as to what you can wear. So sometimes they say that you have to wear black and white, for example. Sometimes they say that you have to wear business attire, so they still say that the boys have to wear a tie with a suit, and the girls will have to wear sorts of business wear, you know, office type clothes. But sometimes they say you can wear anything you like, or sometimes they say you can look casual, but we don't allow jeans or trainers, just sort of wear something a little bit smarter, but you could still wear like t-shirts or whatnot. Be a little bit more comfy. In my school, I just don't think we had any rules really. I think as long as it wasn't too revealing or it didn't have like an offensive slogan on it, you could just wear what you wanted, which was fantastic. So those last 2 years of school, you get that little bit of freedom, but it's freedom that comes with knowing that you're being treated more as an adult, and that you're being responsible, and that you can choose for yourself about how you present yourself and what you think is appropriate and what you think is professional. So that's quite fun. So that's school uniform in a nutshell. It's not all like Harry Potter, okay? Some uniforms, again, some posh schools, private schools or religious schools have a little bit more of a fastidious uniform policy, and their uniforms may be a little bit more specific or hard to come by, but it's all a similar, you know, it's all similar anyway. So what do you think of school uniform? Do you think it's a good thing? Were you made to wear it, or did you not have it? I think my final thought on this is to actually compare it to what I've seen in Europe. So last year or the year before, I was out and about and I saw a group of students. They were teenagers, and I think they were Spanish students, They were pretty well behaved. There was nothing wrong with their demeanour or anything like that, but they were obviously out on a trip and they'd come to London, I guess, for a few days, and they were walking around and seeing all the sights and all of that. And although they weren't wearing a uniform, they were kind of wearing an unofficial uniform because they were all wearing jeans and a hoodie. Not the same hoodie, they were each wearing a hoodie. Grammar is important. So they were wearing jeans and hoodies and trainers, and they all had a backpack. I don't think they were told to wear that, but I think they just fell into that pattern because it was comfortable. So I think when you can wear what you want every day, you probably stop that attitude of showing off that British school children have if they're allowed to wear their own clothes once in a while. So we have something, oh, this is so British sounding. We have something called Mufti Day. It's one of those loan words from an Indian language. So we have Mufti Day in schools, and a school can choose when they have theirs, once or twice a year perhaps. It's usually for charity. So you pay £1 or £2 to a charity and then you can come in wearing what you want. Or it might be the end of term and they're just going to let you have a party on the last day of term. So Mufti Day is the day that British kids get to wear what they like, and it's so rare and so special and so exciting that all the kids want to get dressed up in their favourite things, which sometimes means, especially in primary schools obviously, sometimes this means that the girls come in like their beautiful sparkly party dresses and the boys come in their Batman outfits or Spider-Man or something, because they're so excited that they get to show off their most treasured clothes for the day, and they get to really show their individuality, their personality for that one day, and they're going to wear the newest thing or the brightest thing or the most kind of special favourite thing, and it's showing off. And there's no two ways about it. British kids show off to other kids because they don't get to do it very often. And if they could do it every day, then I think that novelty value would wear off, and then you just end up wearing what's comfortable. So this group I saw that were wearing jeans and hoodies, that novelty had obviously worn off long ago, and they just wanted to be comfortable. And they did all look like each other, so there's obviously a fashion statement going on there. But it was very simple and very comfortable looking and very kind of chilled out, and no one was like making an effort or trying to show off or wearing anything that was really impractical, you know. And so I kind of like that. It obviously worked for them, shall I say. So there we go. School uniform definitely has its ups and downs, its advantages and disadvantages. I wore it, you know, throughout, so I don't really have anything to compare it with. It's just normal here, and I wouldn't have had it any other way, even though there was a lot of discussion at all times, you know, whether we should change our uniform or do away with the uniform or simplify it or anything like that. And there was always discussion, it was always a talking point. But at the end of the day, it's just a very everyday, normal kind of established thing to do. So if you've been somewhere where you've changed your school uniform policy, or if you have been somewhere that you didn't have to wear a uniform and then you maybe changed and you did have to have one, did it change any attitudes for you? Did it change any behaviour in the school? Was the school any stricter or less strict because they had a uniform, do you think? Let me know your thoughts, and feel free to like Google some images of British school uniforms, I guess. I mean, the part of my brain that's like safeguarding child protection, don't Google pictures of kids in school uniform. But but there are images out there of the kind of things that people wear, just to give you an idea if you want to have a little bit more of a look. Okay, I shall leave it there. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.